The Sony Spider Universe is the most surreal and head-scratching franchise of all time. Kraven the Hunter just released and bombed at the box office, which acted as the final nail in the coffin for this series. To commemorate this feverish dream, I wanted to rank all of them, and since they're all pretty terrible, I'm going to reverse the ranking and go from best to worst. Venom. Let There Be Carnage. To put this out right away, I would classify all of these movies as having hilariously bad writing.
I don't like you.
Let me is him.
You do not deserve nice things.
However, I think the true quality or enjoyment to be derived from the SSU is how much fun you have with these movies. And the second Venom film I think is easily the most fun in that trilogy. It's by far the least serious, which is a major positive.
Yeah, you're the big sexy hero.
And tonally, it's very exuberant. The first half hour is basically a comedy, and I found quite a bit of the humor to be pretty compelling. The relationship between Venom and Eddie Brock has had some time to marinate, and their complacency and new livelihood leads to some great scenarios.
I think I'm Pablo Picasso.
No!
From Venom giving Eddie dating advice and commentating on his weird quirks and failures.
Awkward.
Venom bonding with pet chickens even though that's one of his primary food sources, and even Venom just cooking Eddie food is a lot of fun. But once the movie pivots into being more about Carnage, I lost most of my interest. And I know a lot of people love Carnage, but the PG-13 rating cripples the villain's devious and violent nature. Instead, he's split between being silly and trying to be scary, and it didn't work that much for me. But in comparison to the other villains in the SSU, I guess he's actually the best, which is really telling for how bad these movies are. There's also this love interest character for Cletus that gets a lot of screen time that I wish was just cut out. The writer clearly establishes that there will be conflict between Carnage and this lady since she's a mutant that screams loudly. Hint: Symbiote's main weakness is sound and fire. I wonder where this is going.
She does that again, I'll eat her face.
This makes the entire ending climax null because you know exactly what's going to happen. Which, thinking about the plot, I don't think there's a single twist or surprising moment in the entire story. It's very bland, and I feel like the writing was so dumb to the point that I'm not sure if they intended on the writing being a joke in of itself. Like a main example of this is in Cletus's cell, he marked all of the locations of his dead and buried victims. So all Eddie and Venom do is look at this and pinpoint where the bodies are, when this was something that stumped the authorities. This is all just so baffling that I assume this is satire. The action was also surprisingly bad considering that this was directed by Andy Serkis, and I assumed all of his experience with working with CGI and integrating that into live action would give us better scenes, but that wasn't the case. Venom: The Last Dance. Remember when I said I partially enjoyed the second Venom movie because it wasn't that serious? Well, The Last Dance takes itself way too seriously. And at the same time, there are some crazily silly and wild scenes that feel like they're in a completely different movie, like Venom dancing with Chang. That was honestly peak, and I feel robbed that the entire movie couldn't be on that level, because then I would actually really enjoy this. However, since this is the last outing for Venom, the creators wanted to raise the stakes and dramatic payoff of everything. Which is fair, but the only thing that works in this regard is the relationship between Venom and Eddie. That's by far and away the best aspect in this series, and Venom's sacrifice for Eddie was a pretty solid ending. Although, the executives couldn't have a permanent death, and Venom technically survives as a cockroach. The ending is also extremely corny, and they literally show us a montage of the good times they had together. Which again, I just don't know if the director is doing this intentionally to make it ironically funny, or if they genuinely think this makes the movie better. Outside of that though, Venom and Eddie regress and are back to constantly bickering, which is pretty annoying. The best aspect of the second film was their chemistry, and that's mostly done away with the development that Eddie is getting tired of Venom. This movie is also much more consumed by the plot, and that's very unfortunate because the last thing I want is a bunch of exposition and idiotic plot beats to be at the forefront of this movie. They literally explain this cortex mechanic 3 separate times, in which these aliens can track Venom while he's in his full form. And then simultaneously, that rule that's bashed into our heads is also contradicted constantly, like the aliens following Eddie while not in Venom form. Then by far the worst aspect here is that the movie is simply bloated. It doesn't need to be 2 hours, and we spend a lot of time within this Area 51 antagonist perspective, and the villains themselves are wholly uninteresting. The main big bad just sends out these drone aliens instead of doing anything himself. You'd think the third act would be leading to him gaining some agency, and there being an ultimate showdown in the end. But nope, I guess the creators were possibly saving him for a Sinister Six movie or something? I don't know. So this in turn cripples the antagonistic force of this movie into being generic bland aliens. To add to this movie's bloated nature, there's an additional subplot of this hippie family who wants to see aliens, and they add practically nothing to the movie. They just make the ending climax even more crowded and convoluted, and I guess the only saving grace of their existence is Otto Hightower singing.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Then before moving on, there is one small positive here that gives the movie an inkling of interest in that there are some new aspects like Venom turning into and taking over different animals, which I wish they leaned more into. And then there were more symbiotes, which at least gave the ending a shred of epicness, and there was some variety between them. Ultimately though, the movie was very underwhelming. Unsurprisingly, the 3 best movies within the SSU is the Venom Trilogy. And honestly, I still find it pretty baffling that this movie spawned this cursed franchise. If Venom didn't make almost a more $1 billion at the box office, then Kraven the Hunter, Morbius, and Madam Web wouldn't exist. So that's on you guys. Imagine how much better society would be if this movie bombed at the box office. But the first Venom to me is the worst because, on top of it also being pretty serious, there's fundamentally the least amount of Venom in it because we have to build up to that point. So the first half hour is very mundane, and the writing can be excruciating at times.
Now you know we love the Eddie Brock show. There isn't a better investigative reporter working today.
Homelessness is only increasing into the thousands.
Really, the only saving grace of this entire movie is Tom Hardy's performance and some of his first interactions with Venom. My man is an amazing actor, and it's flooring how much fun energy he injects into this movie. Besides him though, the villain is as scary as a kitchen mouse and is less intimidating than Matt Smith's villain in Morbius. He's painfully dull, and he randomly gets this symbiote who we for some reason have been following through the subplot that completely halts the pace of the movie whenever we cut to it. No idea why they didn't cut this subplot out and just have one of the symbiotes that's already in the lab merge with him. The action is also at its worst in the trilogy, and on top of having terrible editing, which at this point I guess is just a given, they're also putting a character who is the color black in a nighttime dark setting. So how the hell am I supposed to enjoy any of this high budget action if I can't physically see it? At least the other movies made sure that, you know, you were able to view the movie, but the director for the first Venom made such a massive oversight here, along with the CGI and VFX being pretty comically bad at times. Out of the entire runtime of this movie, I maybe liked about 10 minutes of it, and the first action scene where Venom fights the goons in Eddie's apartment was genuinely great. It seems baffling that we have this nugget of greatness with excellent choreography in the movie, and then everything else comes nowhere close to this. Makes me think this was a different second unit director or something. Kraven the Hunter. Not gonna lie, I was kind of sold on this movie being underrated in the first 10-minute prison set piece, but then it immediately faceplants and rapidly goes downhill from there. Primarily because it gives us a fun slice of action and then immediately pivots into a 30-minute long origin story. It feels like the creators were aware that this origin was really boring, so they opened the movie in an exciting manner to hook the audience. And if that's the case, then why not just cut out the origin? I don't need to see this absolute nonsense where this tiger kidnaps a boy, bleeds into his wound, and then this random princess girl with a miracle Black Panther cure finds him and gives it to him. Just stop, please. At that point, can we just use flashbacks or, alluding to someone's past with an ounce of nuance to make your main character more intriguing? Like a good story? That's just a thought. This is also essentially highlighting the biggest issue besides the fundamentally atrocious writing in that. Like Venom The Last Dance, That's So Kraven doesn't need to be 2 hours long. The last thing I want is to be locked into a terrible movie for 30 minutes longer than I have to. There's no point in already establishing this character and his powers, and then re-explaining and showing us all of this in the past. Another massive negative in this movie is that this is probably one of the worst villains I've ever seen. I genuinely don't even know where to start, and this moment mentally stun-locked me. Rhino has such an odd and lame power, he looks ridiculous, his motivation and personality are fundamentally lacking, and he flat out doesn't feel like a villain. We literally have Russell Crowe, who plays a menacing father who has this immense screen presence, so I don't know why he wasn't the main villain. This film is a walking example of a script that needs a dire rewrite because I feel like there is a semi-decent story under the surface. Cut out the origin in Rhino, along with this other side character Calypso who adds practically nothing. And I kind of forgot, but there's also another minor villain who can hypnotize people who should be cut as well. The best path to me is making the movie primarily revolve around the endearing relationship between these two brothers, and the father threatening one of them to manipulate and get back at the other. This brotherly relationship was really the only compelling aspect of the whole movie, even though it has less than 10 minutes of screen time. And with all the other bullshit cut out, then maybe this movie would have a chance. Although, all the action that was in the movie was basically in the trailer, which was unfortunate since the action was surprisingly pretty good. Besides the ending, where there was a bunch of unnecessary CGI, and at that point, it feels like Sony is wasting money and they should have cut all of these fake animals and donated $10 million to a charity or something. The ending of the movie is also extremely jarring, and Kraven the Muncher's brother turns into a literal chameleon. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother explaining that, and I don't know what's more hilarious. The fact that they thought this would make a good sequel villain, or the fact they thought they had a chance at getting a sequel. Morbius. Morbius misfires massively, managing many more maddening moments than meaningful merits. Mediocre moments, muddled meaning, merely monotonous, mindless maddening. Morbius's major mistake, mercenariness. Alright, I think you get the joke, and we'll both go crazy if this entire review starts with M letters. We all know that this movie is a heaping pile of dino shit, and it's really puzzling that this movie plays it straight tonally, while also having Matt Smith absolutely hamming it up in every scene he's in. Like, I just don't get it. Why do we have Jared Leto trying his ass off, and then Matt Smith is clearly just memeing? Which honestly is the only reason why this movie isn't on the bottom, because without his shirtless dance, this movie is worthless to me. Utterly forgettable characters, completely uninteresting backstory, action that makes Venom look like John Wick, and a plot so unabashedly mind-numbing that it administered a viral plague onto its subjects, and the primary symptom was people putting morb in front of every word in the dictionary. I don't think a movie in the history of cinema was so bad to the point that it started a viral meme sensation that was more worthwhile than the actual movie itself. Now, really the only saving grace besides, again, that dancing scene, is that Morbius is so dumb and silly that it's entertainingly bad. It verges on the point of almost being campy, which may offer some pleasure to any poor souls randomly finding it on Netflix at 1 AM. Although, I can't say that for the ending because you can't even see the ending. It's as if the director had black diarrhea and smeared that shit all over the camera lens, because that's basically the last 20 minutes of the film. You'd probably get more enjoyment out of sitting in a pitch black room for that duration because at least your visual cortex won't be assaulted. Morbius is a flat-out fever dream from every facet of the production, and I simply don't understand how a film like this can be made and anyone being proud of it. Madam Web. At least Morbius gave us the courtesy of being laughably bad, but Madam Web is just excruciatingly boring. I've never seen a blockbuster film where literally everyone wants no part of it and aren't even trying at all. Madam Web is so drab that it sucks your energy like an energy vampire from What We Do in the Shadows. The script is so bad that an AI can honestly do better. I can't pin any meaningful characteristics on any of the characters. It's painfully slow, has the production quality of a student film, or honestly, that's a bit of a disservice to some college students that are making great content. The CGI is horrendous despite this costing $100 million. Money laundering. And the actors desperately want nothing to do with this movie. Similar to Morbius, the best thing to come of this was something external in which the actors were memeing this movie during interviews.
Are you going to be celebrating Valentine's Day by seeing Madam Web? That's obviously the way to do it.
Yep, I will be there in the movie theater.
As you should.
Front row.
So it's kind of like if AI generated your boyfriend's perfect movie.
For anyone that's been following my channel for a while, I made a video that's now blocked worldwide, which is honestly for the better, called Watching Cats for 12 Hours Straight. And the crazy thing is that I'd rather watch the abomination that is Cats, despite watching it 8 times, than watching Madam Web again. Literally the only thing of value it pitched to us was the suit-up/team up with these Spider-Women. But this superhero movie, if you can call it that, is just these powerless women running around New York like brain-dead NPCs. And it even takes like half the movie to even get to that boring, mediocre point. Meanwhile, we just live through Madam Web's life, I'm too lazy to look up her name, until the villain shows up, and I even think they blatantly ADR'd a lot of his dialogue.
You have no idea of the torment and torture of dying over and over again. I can't escape it.
Which, speaking of dialogue, this is the most alien-sounding writing I've ever listened to.
I agreed to provide security for you because I thought you were close to finding the spider.
You know, be like a Girl Scout girl. Be that. Just be that. Don't do dumb things. You will not like me when I'm hangry.
And when you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
If you told me Tommy Wiseau wrote the script, I'd genuinely believe you because this feels like a higher budget version of The Room. This movie is honestly so bad that I couldn't be asked with making a deeper analysis video, which I actually promised in my initial review, because I don't want to wither away and die in my chair. This deserves to be forgotten and to not receive any of the meme treatment that Morbius got. Thank you for watching, and I'm really happy that this nightmarish fever dream of a franchise is finally over. Let me know in the comments how many brain cells were purged during this video, and my Letterboxd, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description. Thank you incredibly to my top patrons Logan Farmer and Simply Put. You guys are morbid spectacular.